Niccolò Machiavelli is often remembered as the master of strategy, a man who studied power with cold precision. But behind his writings lies a lesson almost no one speaks of today. It's not about politics, not about kings or war. It's about the private decisions that shape a man's fate, especially the choice of a woman. Ask yourself, why do so many men fall? Not in battle, but in love. Why do ambition, discipline, and purpose vanish after the wrong relationship begins? Could it be that choosing the wrong woman is the most underestimated threat to a man's stability? Machiavelli saw it clearly. He warned, without sentiment or illusion, that power can be destroyed from within, not just by enemies, but by emotional chaos disguised as affection. In this video, we explore 5 brutal, rarely discussed truths about how a man should choose a woman, according to Machiavellian wisdom. These insights are not romantic. They are strategic, and they could protect you from mistakes most men never recover from. When a man chooses a woman, most people believe the heart should lead, that attraction, chemistry, or even fate should decide. But Niccolò Machiavelli would reject all of that. In his world, decisions are not made with feelings. They are made with consequences in mind. He believed that desire clouds judgment, and in no place is this truer than in relationships. Most men make the mistake of seeing only what they want to see. They meet a woman and project their hopes onto her. Beauty becomes virtue, charm becomes trust, and emotion becomes truth. But Machiavelli's philosophy warns, used appearances are masks. People present themselves based on what you want, not who they truly are. That is why discernment, the ability to observe beyond surface attraction, is essential. To choose a woman wisely, a man must see clearly. He must observe behavior over time, not words spoken in a moment. He must study patterns, not promises. And he must ask, does this person bring clarity or confusion into my life? Machiavelli's view of human nature was not cynical. It was realistic. He understood that people are motivated by self-interest, survival, and status. These motives often operate beneath the surface of romantic gestures. A man who is driven only by desire becomes blind to these deeper currents. Discernment is the antidote. It is not about suspicion. It's about self-respect. It means looking beyond physical beauty and temporary pleasure to ask harder questions. Is she emotionally stable? Does she support or sabotage my growth? Does she respect masculine order, or test it to feed chaos? Is her affection consistent or performative? And most importantly, what is her pattern under pressure? A Machiavellian mind seeks truth over comfort. It doesn't matter how charming she is during the good times. What matters is how she responds when things don't go her way. This level of discernment requires emotional discipline. You must not fall too fast, and you must not ignore red flags. The way a woman handles small conflicts reveals how she will handle larger responsibilities. If she manipulates, withdraws, or provokes during minor issues, imagine how she will respond during a crisis. Desire makes men dismiss these signs. They excuse, explain, and hope things will improve. But Machiavelli would call this weakness, because it gives away power in the most private domain of life. Understand this. A woman who does not respect a man's boundaries, values, or vision will eventually erode his identity. And no amount of attraction will undo that damage. Discernment, then, is not only about avoiding harm. It's also about identifying alignment. A discerning man doesn't just avoid the wrong women. He recognizes the right ones. He looks for stability, support, and self-awareness. He honors a woman who strengthens his focus, rather than distracts from it. Machiavelli might not have written directly about modern relationships, but his principles apply flawlessly. Judge character, not charm. Study behavior, not intentions, and never mistake desire for destiny. In the age of emotional noise, discernment is a man's quiet weapon. Choose with your eyes open, not just your heart full. In the pursuit of power, Machiavelli warned against one fatal error: being too accessible. This wasn't just advice for kings and commanders. It's a law for every man who values his peace, purpose, and position. When it comes to relationships, modern men often believe that saying yes to more options equals more happiness. But the truth is the opposite. The more selective a man is, the more powerful he becomes. Why? Because selectivity is a declaration of standards. It tells the world, and more importantly, yourself, that not everyone earns a place beside you. Not every pretty face, soft voice, or exciting personality qualifies for access to your time, energy, or future. Machiavelli observed that power is not something you always gain. It is often something you protect. And in relationships, protection begins with who you allow into your life. Look around. The downfall of many strong men starts not in public, but in private. They didn't lose because they lacked ambition. They lost because they opened their world to someone who did not belong in it. Someone who distracted, drained, or destroyed. The mistake wasn't falling in love. The mistake was not filtering first. Machiavellian wisdom teaches that power must be guarded like a fortress. Not all visitors should be welcomed. Not all invitations should be accepted. And not all affection should be trusted. A selective man evaluates not just appearance or emotion, but alignment. He asks, does this woman match the discipline I live by? Does she challenge me to grow? Or tempt me to regress? Is her presence sharpening my mission? Or softening my edge? This is not cold-hearted. This is strategic discernment. A man who gives his heart too freely often loses his mind shortly after. He makes excuses, lowers his standards, and allows behavior he once considered unacceptable. All because he chose too quickly and too broadly. Machiavelli would say, never give a crown to someone who has not been tested. This applies to love as much as leadership. Selective men understand this. Emotional intimacy is an investment, not a gift. And like any high-value investment, it must be protected by rigorous standards. Not swayed by momentary desire. You do not owe access to your life simply because someone shows interest. That is a boy's thinking. A man understands that value lies in what is rare, earned, and proven, not what is easily available. Being selective also means knowing your non-negotiables. What principles will you never compromise for a relationship? What behaviors are deal breakers no matter how attractive the package? Without this clarity, you become vulnerable to manipulation. You entertain drama disguised as passion. You tolerate chaos because you've mistaken it for love. And before long, your sense of direction erodes. Machiavelli would see this not as romance, but as weakness. In a world that tells men to be open to everything, the strong man chooses restraint. He knows that the right woman must meet the standards set by the life he is building, not the other way around. So, remember this: power does not come from saying yes. It comes from knowing when to say no. In choosing a woman, your selectivity is not arrogance. It is wisdom. It is protection. It is the quiet discipline that guards your focus, amplifies your masculinity, and sustains your path forward. Be slow to trust. Be quick to observe. And never forgetting the higher your value, the tighter your filter must be. Love is often painted in soft colors: poetry, passion, promises. But Machiavelli would have seen through this illusion. Not because he rejected love, but because he understood a darker truth. Not everything that looks like love is love. And not every woman who professes love brings peace. Sometimes, what enters your life wearing the face of affection is actually emotional chaos, masked by charm and wrapped in intensity. This chaos is not always loud. It can be subtle, seductive, even poetic. It starts with compliments, admiration, and shared dreams. But soon, it morphs into confusion. Mood swings, double meanings, silent treatments, passive aggression. And the man, he begins to question himself. He walks on eggshells. He doubts his own perceptions. This is not love. This is psychological warfare dressed in intimacy. Machiavelli warned rulers to beware of advisors who pretend loyalty but serve their own ends. Likewise, a man must be vigilant against women who simulate connection but destabilize his inner world. Emotional course often thrives in drama cycles. There's always a high, followed by a low. A fight, followed by a reconciliation. A storm, followed by a honeymoon phase. These patterns are addictive. But they're not healthy. They create dependency, not intimacy. They feed insecurity, not trust. They demand attention, not respect. Machiavelli might have called this courtly sabotage, where someone gains influence by disrupting your clarity, not by adding to your strength. Such women often blur boundaries. They shift blame. They cry, love, but demand control. And if you challenge the dysfunction, you're labeled cold or insensitive. This is the trap. A man begins to think that enduring emotional chaos is proof of love. That fighting harder means loving deeper. That surviving the storms shows commitment. But Machiavellian wisdom says otherwise. A wise man does not wage wars he cannot win. And certainly not in his own home. The test of real love is not passion. It's peace. It's not how intense it feels when you're together, but how stable you remain when you're apart. It's not the excitement of being pulled in. It's the freedom to be fully yourself. Ask yourself, are you growing stronger? Or are you constantly managing crisis? Are your days more productive or more distracted? Do you feel respected or regulated? If you are unsure, pay attention to patterns. Chaos reveals itself in repetition, and Machiavelli would insist. Do not ignore the signs in the name of loyalty. True loyalty is not owed to someone who brings instability. A wise man sets boundaries where confusion ends. He does not tolerate emotional volatility simply because it arrives in an attractive package. There's a difference between a woman who challenges you to grow and one who keeps you emotionally off balance to maintain control. A Machiavellian man knows that order creates strength, and any force, however beautiful, that disrupts that order must be confronted, not romanticized. Let this be clear: love should never require you to abandon your logic. A relationship should never feel like a puzzle you can't solve. Emotional chaos is not a test of your masculinity. It's an attack on it. In the end, what protects a man is not just love, but clarity. Not just connection, but emotional consistency. Not just attraction, but alignment in peace. So choose wisely. Because a woman who cannot manage her emotions will soon be managing yours. And by the time you notice, you may have lost not just your power, but your sense of self. When we think of loyalty in relationships, it's often wrapped in soft sentiments: devotion, passion, emotional bonds. Yet, Machiavelli's wisdom cuts through the sentimental veil to reveal a tougher, more strategic truth. Loyalty is born not from fleeting emotions, but from unshakable standards. This is a crucial distinction that many men overlook. They assume that love, affection, or emotional connection alone can guarantee loyalty. But history and human nature show us otherwise. Emotions are fluid, changeable, and sometimes deceptive. They can be influenced by circumstances, mood swings, or outside distractions. Standards, however, are firm and clear. They establish boundaries and expectations that shape behavior over time. A Machiavellian man understands this well. He knows that to secure genuine loyalty, he must first define and uphold his standards, not just in words, but through consistent actions. Imagine a relationship without clear standards. It becomes a battlefield of emotions, where loyalty is tested not by commitment, but by convenience. Without firm boundaries, respect dissolves, and what remains is a fragile, conditional allegiance, one that vanishes when times get tough. Machiavelli teaches us to view loyalty like a contract, not a feeling. And contracts must be clear, enforceable, and non-negotiable. When you set high standards, whether it's honesty, respect, ambition, or integrity, you communicate what you expect and what you will not tolerate. This clarity commands respect and filters out those unwilling to meet the terms. In practical terms, this means a man should ask himself what behaviors am I unwilling to compromise on? How do I demonstrate my standards consistently? Am I willing to walk away if those standards are violated? Because true loyalty is the product of this clarity and consistency. It grows where expectations are respected and boundaries honored. A Machiavelli also knew that people, especially in relationships, are often motivated by self-interest. Loyalty tied only to feelings can shift when desires change. But loyalty tied to respect for clear standards is far more durable. Consider a woman who knows your standards are firm and that you will not tolerate deceit or disrespect. She is more likely to remain loyal, not because she is swept away by passion, but because she values the stability and honor those standards create. This kind of loyalty withstands trials. It is resilient in the face of temptation and hardship. A man who builds loyalty on standards also cultivates self-respect. He does not sacrifice his principles for affection or approval. Instead, he commands respect by living his values, an example that draws genuine loyalty rather than demands it. It's important to recognize that setting standards is not about control or manipulation. It's about mutual respect and clarity. When both partners know what is expected and what is unacceptable, loyalty becomes a conscious choice rather than an emotional whim. This is the foundation of lasting relationships. Not fleeting emotions, but enduring commitment built on respect. Machiavelli's insight is clear. If you want loyalty, you must first be loyal to your own standards. In a world where feelings are often mistaken for truth, this is the quiet power that most men overlook. Remember, loyalty fueled by emotion alone is like a candle in the wind. Loyalty grounded in standards is a fortress, strong, reliable, and unwavering. As you choose a partner, ask yourself, are you building a relationship based on passion or principles? Are you cultivating loyalty or hoping for it? Are your standards clear enough to command respect and allegiance? If the answers are uncertain, it's time to rethink your approach. Because loyalty is not something you find. It's something you build. And it begins with the standards you refuse to compromise. Promises are easy to make. Words flow freely in moments of passion, hope, and expectation. But actions, those steady, repeated behaviors, are far harder to fabricate or sustain. Machiavelli understood human nature in ways that transcend time. He knew that what a person consistently does reveals far more than what they occasionally say. This principle is especially vital when choosing a partner. Men often fall into the trap of believing in the power of promises, those grand declarations of love, loyalty, and future plans. Yet, promises can be empty vessels, filled with good intentions, but lacking in true commitment. The real test: patterns over promises. A promise is a single moment, a declaration. A pattern is a series of actions that confirm or contradict that declaration. Think about it, Lay. How often have we heard vows like, "I will always be there for you," only to witness the opposite unfold over time? How many times have words of devotion been followed by behaviors of neglect, betrayal, or inconsistency? Machiavelli's wisdom directs us to look beyond the surface, to observe the repeated behaviors, the habits that truly define character. Patterns reveal what a person values and prioritizes when words fade and reality sets in. For example, if a woman repeatedly cancels plans, dismisses your feelings, or fails to honor commitments, no amount of verbal promises can cover that pattern of unreliability. Similarly, if she consistently supports your ambitions, communicates honestly, and stands by you in difficult times, those patterns become the foundation of trust. This principle applies not only to relationships, but to all human interactions. Machiavelli believed that wise leaders and wise men discern truth by watching long-term behavior, not isolated statements. For a man choosing a partner, this means cultivating patience and observation. It means asking Geggs, what are the recurring actions that define her? Do her behaviors align with the promises she makes? Does she demonstrate respect, integrity, and reliability over time? Understanding patterns requires humility and vigilance. It challenges us to resist the temptation to be swept away by beautiful words or fleeting moments of charm. Because charm is easy. Consistency is hard. And in the long game of life and love, consistency wins. Machiavelli's insight warns Usos. A man who ignores patterns risks building his future on illusions. He risks investing time, emotion, and trust into a mirage, a promise that dissolves when reality demands action. The power lies in discerning these patterns early, recognizing the signals before deep attachment forms, understanding that promises are seeds, but patterns are the roots and branches. If the roots are weak, the tree will not stand. For a man, observing patterns is a way of protecting his energy, his heart, and his future. It also empowers him to make choices aligned with his values and goals. This is not about mistrust. It is about pragmatic wisdom. It is about seeing people as they are, not as we wish them to be. By prioritizing patterns over promises, a man claims control over his emotional destiny. He builds relationships on foundations that can endure storms, not fragile fantasies that collapse under pressure. Remember, Machiavelli's greatest lesson here is that power and security come to those who master the art of realistic assessment. When it comes to choosing a woman, don't be dazzled by words alone. Look for what she does repeatedly. Trust the patterns that emerge, because in those patterns, you will find the truth of her character and the reliability of her loyalty. Choose wisely. Choose reality over illusion. And in doing so, build a partnership grounded in truth, strength, and lasting respect. As we conclude this exploration into the timeless wisdom of Machiavelli, it becomes clear that choosing a partner is far more than an emotional journey. It is a strategic decision that shapes the course of a man's life. Machiavelli's teachings challenge us to look beyond surface level attraction and fleeting feelings. They compel us to understand that true influence and lasting loyalty arise from clarity, patience, and realistic assessment. From controlling perception to valuing actions over words. From setting unwavering standards to discerning patterns rather than promises. These principles form a blueprint, not just for choosing a partner, but for cultivating meaningful, resilient relationships. In a world often clouded by illusions and quick judgments, embracing Machiavellian insight equips a man with the tools to safeguard his heart and future. It empowers him to build alliances grounded in respect, integrity, and mutual benefit. Remember, the path to lasting loyalty and genuine connection begins with knowing yourself, defining your standards, and observing the truth in actions over words. The lessons here are not about manipulation or cynicism. They are about wisdom, pragmatic, clear-eyed wisdom that honors both yourself and those you choose to welcome into your life. As you move forward, reflect on these truths. Ask yourself, Liu Jie, are my choices guided by principles or passing emotions? Eju, do I seek partners who meet the standards I set for myself? The J, am I vigilant in discerning patterns that reveal true character? By answering these questions honestly, you lay the foundation for relationships that endure beyond passion. Relationships built on trust, loyalty, and strategic insight. Thank you for joining this journey into the mind of one of history's greatest strategists. May Machiavelli's wisdom inspire you to choose wisely, live boldly, and build bonds that stand the test of time.